Good evening. It is Wednesday, and that means Midweek Encouragement. I'm so glad you're with us tonight. Thank you for walking this journey with us. So glad you're along. We are excited to start a brand new series tonight, and that series is called Kingdom Come. We are going to be launching this from Luke chapter 10, and eventually we'll get into a little bit of chapter 11 of Luke, and it's exciting. Thank you. So get your notes, taking devices out, get your Bible out, get ready to ask questions, get ready to engage. Go ahead and engage there at in the comments area. You can put some great comments and emojis and share the video. Hit the like button in Facebook Live, or if you're on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button and activate that little bell so you get notified when we're on. Thank you. Thank you. It is indeed an honor, a pleasure, a privilege, really, to be together with you like this tonight and every Wednesday night. We want to get the word out. We want to let other people join the Midweek Encouragement family and be a part of this time that we have together. I'm hoping that you're learning, that you're getting some new information and maybe even some help in understanding some of the scriptures when it comes to the Gospels and the life of Jesus. Our whole point is to look at the life of Jesus and try to understand a little more about what he meant by what he said, how it was received, and take a look at the context so we kind of know a little better about what's going on around him when he's making some of the statements that he makes. So at any rate, this is exciting tonight. Kingdom Come. We are entering in this series of lessons a pivotal moment in the ministry of Jesus. And in essence, all that Jesus has been building up to finally gets initiated here. Everything from this moment forward is, well, it's frankly unavoidable. It's just going to happen. But this moment here in Luke chapter 10, this moment is a pivotal point, perhaps an apex, if you will, of the practical aspect of what Jesus had been teaching, and now he's giving some new disciples the opportunity to exercise some of these things that they've been hearing about, and preparing them and getting them ready. So, all that said, let's get started in Kingdom Come. Let's go to Luke chapter 10. And let's start with verses 1 through 9. Luke 10, 1 through 9. After these things, the Lord appointed 70 others also, and sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where he himself was about to go. Then he said to them, "The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Go your way. Behold, I send you out as lambs among wolves. Carry neither money bag, knapsack, nor sandals, and greet no one along the road. But whatever house you enter, first say, 'Peace to this house.' And if a son of peace is there, your peace will rest on it. If not, it will return to you. And remain in the same house, eating and drinking such things as they give, for the laborer is worthy of his wages. Do not go from house to house. Whatever city you enter and they receive you, eat such things as are set before you. Heal the sick and say to them, the kingdom of God has come near to you." I'm not sure we're going to get it. In fact, I'm fairly certain we're not going to get to all of those verses tonight. But we're going to get a good start on these things. As, of course, we are limited by our time together. I want to honor your time And I appreciate you being here, and I don't want you to, I'm not going to take advantage of your time here tonight. So, Luke 10, Jesus is sending disciples on his mission. Now, this is a mission, and it may sound very, very similar and very familiar, and that's because this mission is certainly similar to one that had happened before. The previous one was maybe, best we can figure out, a year or so before this one. In the previous mission, if you'll remember, 12 were sent out in groups of 2. This time, 70 are being sent out in groups of 2. There is, once again, a method and a strategy for how Jesus is going to do this, and what he wants them to do and how he wants them to proceed in this process. So, like the last mission, they are, in essence, going to prepare ahead of time for Jesus to come in behind them and follow up. So if you remember the last time, he went behind the 12 and was kind of checking up on them. They were preparing for him to come, and he's seeing what kind of work they did. And it's an opportunity to then give critique and help them understand what was good, what was not good, what they could do, what they should do, what should have been done, what should not have been done. All of those things were intended to be educational, instructional for the 12 the first time, and in a similar fashion in the 70 this time. Similarly, our mission today in the 21st century is very similar to what their mission was, in that we also are to go and prepare people to meet Jesus. Now, we're not Jesus. Let's make that clear. We are his ambassadors. We are his representatives, but we're not Jesus. We did not die for their sins, could not, even if we wanted to. But what we are doing is preparing the people that we meet to be ready to meet Jesus. We are authorized and commissioned for this mission that Jesus has us on. Again, in Luke 10, the mission here is for 70, and this mission is a bit of a broader mission, perhaps, than what had happened before. If you'll remember, the last time that the disciples, the 12, when the 12 were sent out on a mission, it was a symbolic thing. The number 12 was very symbolic. It was symbolic to Judaism, to Israel, understanding that 12 is a very important number to them. There were 12 patriarchs, 12 sons of Jacob, 12 tribes of Israel, consequently. And so you've got, at that point, 12 commissioned to specifically go to the 12 tribes of Israel. And Israel would notice the number that were sent and take note that this was significant, that the number was that important. So, well, this time it's obviously not 12, it is 70. But the number 70 is also highly symbolic to those in the region, particularly to the Jews. It was symbolic, but not for the sake of the 12 tribes of Israel, but rather for the understanding that 70 is more about Gentile nations. Now, that's not to say they went to a bunch of Gentiles this time, but we'll see as we go along. What I'm trying to get to is 70 is symbolic for the Gentiles, in that in Genesis, if I'm remembering all my numbers correctly, and I could be wrong, I have been wrong before, but the number of non-Hebrew nations, as you see in Genesis, numbered 70, and so 70 was consistent in the Hebrews with the Jews, even here in the first century. It's consistent with a representation of the Gentile nations. That was just something they understood. So it is interesting that Jesus is using this number, and from that position, I think it would be fair to say that there is an indication that he's preparing more for a global mission than a domestic or a Judaism, Jerusalem and the surrounding areas of Israel. He's preparing more of a global circumstance. So, we would have to ask at this point, do the disciples that are going out know this? Do they know the number 70 is significant in the sense that he's preparing for a global mission? Not likely. I don't think they get it. Not the global side of things. And I say that because even the 12 struggled with the whole global idea of what Jesus came to accomplish. They just simply don't seem to be aware of the global context. Now, if you'll fast forward a little bit, Jesus did tell them at some point later on after his resurrection that he was sending them to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world. And you would think at that point, surely they would get the global idea that this is for more than just the Jews, but it's really not the case. They were more concerned with whether this was when Jesus was going to return Israel to their proper sovereignty and bring them into their kingdom with Jesus being their king. And so they still had that on their mind. And even though he's giving them a global sounding commission, it appears that they were thinking in terms of them reaching Jews in all of these various far-flung areas of the world. In other words, they were thinking that they were being sent to the Jews in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and in the uttermost parts of the world, because there still were Jews and Jewish communities throughout the world at that time, from the previous exile when Babylon attacked and captured and relocated many in Judah. Well, they didn't get it. The point is they didn't get it. They're not thinking about the global aspect of all this. They're still very, very, very local and regional. In Luke 10, let's take a look there at verse 2 that we read just a few moments ago. In verse 2, Jesus said, "The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." So, we've heard this. I've preached it. You've probably read it, thought about it. But let's investigate this just a bit more. In this occasion, he's sending out 70 in teams of 2. So the previous time, he had 6 teams of 2 because he only sent out the 12, right? This time, Jesus has 35 teams going out, and to the teams, he is saying to them, pray that the Lord of the harvest would send laborers into his harvest. Well, he's already got here almost 6 times the number he sent out the last time. And yet, he's telling them to pray for more laborers. And we heard this before. If we go back to Matthew chapter 9, he said essentially the same thing to the 12. Pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. And then the very next thing, that's kind of the end of a chapter, and then the end of the very next chapter, he says, he sends out the 12 laborers by 2s. But on this occasion, the 70 that he's sending out are not the answer to the prayer for the Lord of the harvest to send laborers. In fact, they are the ones instructed to pray about this. Well, let's take it a little further. When Jesus sent out the 12 in 2s, when they returned, they brought with them some 5,000 men, and then there's women and children on top of all of this, and that they counted 5,000 men that showed up because of the efforts of 6 teams of 2. 12 dedicated disciples preaching the good news impacted thousands and thousands of people. And didn't Jesus tell them that they were going to fish for people the way they would fish for fish out of the sea? I'll make you fishers of men, I think was the comment. Now, and when they're talking about fishing, they're not talking about what we often do. And I love to fish, but I'm not going out there with a net. It's not my livelihood. It's something I do to rejuvenate and kind of get powered up again and rest in some ways. In other words, I'm out there with a rod and a line and some sort of lure, and it's all done in such a way, depending on whether I'm fly fishing or ice fishing or bank fishing or boat fishing, whatever the case may be. I'm not throwing a net out, right? That's me. I'm not. If I'm doing it for a livelihood, it's a different story. But these fishermen that were now disciples, used to fish with a net. That was their livelihood. And they knew what it meant to throw a net into the water and drag in all kinds of fish, a multitude of fish of all different varieties. So they understood that. And so the 12 go out a year or so before, and they brought back thousands. Sounds like fishing for men. Now, here Jesus is sending more than 6 times that number out. And if that's the case and the numbers hold even close to being true, the hope is they're going to bring many, many more thousands of people with them when they come back. So, what Jesus, it looks like, is saying is, we need more laborers. This isn't enough. And we need more and more, and we all need to chip in, we all need to pay attention, we all need to become a part of all of this, and we need more to come and be a part of this. That seems to be what he's saying. And understand it, when they come back and there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands that are coming back, they're going to need help. They can't just do this with 12 or certainly not 70 either. And this is a model, I think, that should be at work even in the church today. This is why at PSL we are clearly defining what it means to serve, and that everyone in the church is a minister in the sense that we all serve. We are all His children, the children of God, and we are serving as children, joint heirs with Christ. We have a stake in all of this. There's an inheritance to be gained in all of this. And even if you put all of that aside, that the truth is, if we are to have the harvest that I think God wants for us, one person certainly cannot do what Jesus wants His church to do. 70 active disciple makers in this group with Jesus simply were not enough for Him, knowing what was about to happen or what they could and have the potential to accomplish. 70 wasn't enough, and so He's saying to them, hey, you need to pray for more laborers. This is not going to be enough in the very near future. Just simply not enough. And I feel very much like that way with PSL. We're training and teaching and preparing and trying to gather in all of those who would be servants and helpers and trainers and teachers and perform some function in the body. And we need more laborers. We need more help, because I'm seeing a tremendous harvest begin to come in from the greater Salt Lake metro area. Okay, from the 70. Who are these 70? Where'd they come from? Well, it's likely that some of them, if not all of them, perhaps, were converts, disciples of the original 12. As we're going through it, it might become more clear, but these 70 could very well be new recruits that have come along since Jesus sent the 12 out a year before, and they've been following him, and now these 70 are being sent out on a mission, a training mission, really. And of course, a lot of time has gone by, and not everything is recorded in the life of Jesus, or all he said, all that he did. We know that, but it sure seems to be the case that there's some gaps and some missing things here, and this is true in all the gospel accounts. There's missing pieces. There's big gaps of time missing in some areas, and sometimes there's locations or destinations that are not listed in one or any of the gospels. Of course, if you get in the book of John, you find out he wrote that if we were to write down all that Jesus said and did, the world could not contain the books written. So, saying that, I'm saying that there's a lot of history, there's a lot of story with Jesus that we just don't have. And the truth is we do have all that we need. And we don't have everything and all the various details of what happened. But we do have enough to get the idea, right? We understand that because his story is continuing in us. It didn't end with the disciples and with the end of the Gospels and however each of them ended. That's not the end of the story. His story is continuing in us even today. That's why Jesus made the statement that his followers would do greater things. And I think we still continue those greater things. Another question that might come up besides just the number 70 and who these people were might be, why did Jesus send them out in twos? Why not by themselves? He could cover more area, right? You could send them out that way. Or maybe they should go in more than twos. Well, why two? I think one answer is found in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy lays out the fact that you need 2 or 3 witnesses for establishing any word or testimony. So you needed at least 2, and this is the minimum requirement for witnesses. So there's 2 going out. We also understand that there is strength in numbers. In Genesis, God said to Adam, it's not good for man to be alone. He needs a helper. There's a number of scriptures that talk about the importance of having strength in numbers. Such as 1 puts 1,000 to flight, 2 puts 10,000 to flight. The multiplication, the exponential effect of having more than one person. There's the scriptures that talk about 2 are better than 1. If one falls, there's someone there to pick him up. There's the ability to work together, the mutual help for one another, to be able to keep track of each other and keep tabs on each other, make sure everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and there's checks and balances, and there's certainly more than that. If you look later on after the Gospels, when Paul is going out, if you'll notice, there's someone with him. You know, we read about Paul and Barnabas, and then we read about Paul and Silas. That was the preferred method, even with the early church. Very rarely, it happened, but very rarely did someone go out on their own. It was usually at least 2. But even if someone went on their own, it often seems that someone was picked up along the way somehow. So somehow it was gathered, and there ended up being more than one. And truthfully, none of us are called to be a one-person show. We're not called to do everything on our own. We can't. Long gone is the idea that one man, one pastor, one individual can have a vision and deal with and grow a church. That's really not how things are to be, nor is it the way they should be. The church is meant to be a group of people that work in teams of people. Teams. We're supposed to be in teams. We're supposed to link together in teams, doing various functions within the local body. And all of us working together make the entire body function correctly. feel like I'm kind of going overboard with this, but it's really important. It's really important, and it's why we're emphasizing teams right now, and we're building the structure of teamwork and having teams that are working in various aspects of the church. So, Jesus said, he said to pray for laborers, and then he said that he's going to be sending them out. You'll like this. He's sending them out as lambs among wolves. Doesn't that sound exciting? I don't know. It doesn't seem like a really good way to preserve the flock, to send them out as if they were lambs among wolves. It just doesn't seem a very positive and fruitful possibility. Seriously, what kind of shepherd sends his lambs out among wolves? I don't know. It's as if Jesus is saying that some people going out to do ministry for the kingdom are going to be destroyed, eaten alive. Can you imagine? Some people get fired up when they hear of the ministry of others and they hear the success stories of various fields of labor, and then they decide they're going to go out and do the work of the ministry in the same way, and then when they go out, they get attacked and eaten alive by some fervent atheist or whatever, anti-Christian sort of thing. But I think we need to understand that there is an enemy, and the enemy is not necessarily people. The enemy is Satan, the enemy of your soul, and sometimes he uses people, but his intent is to destroy any and all of us. That's what he's determined to do. And sometimes he does use people to do this. How is it that lambs would not get eaten by wolves? Well, one way is to have the shepherd close by. If the shepherd's within reach, he can protect the lambs. He has the tools to be able to keep the wolves away from the lambs. So we should never, ever go out to do a work for God and leave the shepherd behind. And never do that. If you can see the good shepherd, everything's going to be all right. But don't think that just because you had success in one place, that you're going to have success every time you go out. Because if you have success, the temptation is to fall into pride. And I'm telling you, pride will eat you alive. So in that regard, success might be your biggest enemy. And after great successes comes great temptation to be proud. And pride's going to lead you to a great downfall. Pride's going to cause you to wreck your life, even when you're doing a work for God. Why? Because in pride, you're operating with human power alone. And it appears that is probably a good place to stop tonight. I would love to keep going, but I'm going to get into the next line here in what Jesus tells them, and I don't want to start into that and not have time to finish the thought. So we're going to stop here for tonight. I know, Brother Heath, I'm really not trying to shortchange you or anybody else. I'm trying to honor your time and keep everything the way it should be. So thank you so much for coming and joining in tonight in Midweek Encouragement. It's truly an honor. It's a privilege to have this time with you. I am so glad you're along with us on this journey. I want you to continue the journey. It's sometimes it's not as exciting as others, but you know what? It gets there eventually. We'll have a good time with it. I hope you're learning something. If you're learning anything, let me know what you're learning. If you've got questions, let me know what questions you might have. In the meanwhile, until we get together again, I'm encouraging you to love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Fast, pray, give generously. And now you go and make a disciple.